It's time for dinner.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong.
From the creative mind of Scott Bertelson, after 4 decades of teaching our impressionable youth,
The dinner bell.
you are invited to enjoy conversational morsels for the mind at Mr. B's dinner party.
Yeah, dinner.
It's time for dinner. Yes, it's time for dinner with Mr. B at the Mr. B's Dinner Party Podcast. I should have shirts made. Can somebody pay for those? Anyway, I hope that you are dressed for the occasion. It's a very formal occasion today. I hope you have your suit and tie, you have your tux, I have your formal gown. But if you don't, just come in your shorts. That's okay. But I did want you to know that I spent a lot of time today perfecting the cuisine for our podcast. Anyway, let's dive right in.
Let's have a seat round the proverbial table
Would you like to say grace?
with a nod to our higher power and Mr. B's spiritual journey.
For my spiritual journey, my friends, I thought today I'd talk a little bit about if you're a newcomer. That is, you think you might be an overeater, but you're not sure. Now, I have shared with you a checklist that you can possibly use to indicate whether you think you're an overeater or not. And I don't know if that would work for you or not. That's up to you. But I do want you to know that freedom from alcoholic foods is not a diet. I do not believe in diets. I've shared this before. I'm not saying that if people try diets that they aren't successful. I do think that the majority of diets do not work. I think that it has to be a change in lifestyle. I can't imagine just living on green beans and tofu for 4 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever it would be. That's not normal eating, whatever normal is. Not that I have anything against green beans and tofu, because I did go through that type of diet. And did I lose a lot of weight? I sure did. And did I gain it all back? I sure did. And did I gain more? I sure did. But what I want you to remember is that you are not alone. So if you think you're having problems with eating, that you're eating for emotional reasons, and have tried the diets and had no success, and you find that you're obsessed with food, weight, your size, whatever it would be, that you can turn to your higher power. You can turn to the 12 steps, and they can help you. You no longer have to feel shame and humiliation about how you feel about food. Food is simply a substance to nourish the body. If you look at it in that way, then it makes it much easier. Now, prior to my turning my life over to my higher power, anytime that I had any kind of stressor, I would overeat. It was simply an excuse. But I thought that would pacify me that I have earned to binge because life was cruel and not fair. I'm being a little facetious here, because who's to say that every day is a day in happy land, okay? Not every day is happy land. No matter how clean you are, once you go out into the world, which you have to do as an overeater, if you just stay in solitude, it's all over. It's all over. You're going to encounter stress, money issues, job issues, people's attitudes, whatever it would be, all of the above in one day. But remember, an overeater is not normal, whatever that is, when it comes to eating. We get different signals about food than the so-called normal eater. When I see somebody eat one chip at a time from a bag of potato chips, I am shocked and appalled. I can't understand how anybody could do that, because prior to my becoming abstinent, I couldn't shove enough chips into my mouth fast enough. And I would be cutting my tongue and my lips, and I didn't even taste it. I just had to gorge myself on that. That was how my brain worked. I have an alcoholic brain. Many of us can't stop eating once we start. And so we have got to do something to try to change the cycle. For the newcomer who's thinking about practicing the 12 steps, you have to realize that you have an illness, an unhealthy condition of body and mind that can be relieved on a daily basis, one day at a time. Yes, it sounds like a cliche, but it's the truth. There is a solution. You don't have to resort to foods and eating behaviors that created uncontrollable cravings. Now, do I still get cravings? Absolutely. The other night, my son and I were having a meal together, and he had a small piece in front of him and onion rings. Let's just say that created a craving in me. I wanted that pizza so badly. I wanted to smear those onion rings all over my body. I wanted them so badly. But I knew that they were poison to me, so I stayed away from them, and I felt much better that I did that. If we give up our alcoholic foods, we are released from our mental obsession. We are able to achieve and maintain a healthy body weight. Is it a miracle? Absolutely. We can't do this alone. You have to share with other people. Instead of reaching for food, for example, to soothe your nerves, you've got to call somebody, you've got to read some literature, possibly get a sponsor, and somebody you can talk with, who is completely impartial and will tell you exactly what he or she thinks. But you have to do that. As I've mentioned, I usually reach out to 3 to 4 people a day by phone or by text or a combination thereof in order to keep me on the daily road to abstinence. And if I get away from that, then I start falling back into the obsessive thinking and the obsessive craving for foods. In trying to find your serenity or sobriety, normally people come in extremely overweight, or maybe just moderately overweight, or even underweight. There are people who are bulimic, who are obsessed with anything that goes into their mouth and throwing it up. Also being totally unable to control your eating. I was there. My eating controlled me. And now it's completely turned around. I had the following symptoms, and maybe you can think about these yourself. Are you obsessed with your body weight, size, and shape? Do you go on eating binges? Do you graze 24 hours a day? Are you preoccupied with diets? Have you ever done the starving diet, so to speak, thinking that would help? Now, is that the same thing as intermittent fasting? I don't think so. Not that I'm highly versed in intermittent fasting, but starving, it would be when you totally cut off any type of caloric intake for a certain amount of time. Have you ever induced vomiting after you've eaten? Have you used diuretics or laxatives? Do you chew and spit out your food? Some people think that's okay. That's a good way of having your alcoholic food. You can chew it and then spit it out. Have you had diet pills, shots, medical interventions? Have you even had surgery, possibly gastric bypass? If you have the inability to stop eating a certain food after taking the first bite, I equate it with having fireworks going off in your head and in your mouth when you take that first bite of something that you probably should not be having. And the fireworks last for a while, but not for very long. And then you just have the aftermath. Do you fantasize about food? Are you preoccupied with food? Is your whole day based on food? And are you using food as a reward or for comfort? Oh boy, my happy friends, did I ever use food as a reward or for comfort? But we've got to realize we are powerless over our food and our lives are a mess. A mess. So that's why we have to turn to the 12 steps. That's why we have to turn to our higher power. You have to become abstinent. That is, refraining from your alcoholic foods. You've got to determine what those are. They're different for every single person. I know people who are abstinent who can still eat sugar because it doesn't trigger any kind of response. I just don't get that. I'm happy for them, but it doesn't work for me. It's also the same case for pasta for me. Other people can eat pasta. I cannot eat pasta because whatever form or shape the pasta will be, I cannot stop eating it. So, we got a number of things we can do as a newcomer. You can make a plan of eating, have somebody you talk to every day, write, use literature, have an action plan of what you're going to do every day. And try to think of a plan of eating that works for you. Maybe you want to simply stay away from the alcoholic foods. I cannot have sugar. I cannot have refined sugar. I cannot have flour. So I do not have bread. I do not have donuts, anything like that. Because I know that triggers in me wanting more and more and more. And another big thing that's going to help you stay abstinent is to be of service. That comes from talking to other people on the phone who have this issue. For example, I'm going to be speaking at a telephone meeting coming up here to a group of people who are overeaters. And I'm going to give them my story, what it was like, what happened, and where I'm at today. That's really important to do service. If somebody says, would you please do that, to say yes. Really important to try to do that. And when I say a plan of eating, there is no specific diet. Now, I know you might be saying, why can't you just give me something, a sheet of paper that gives me, text me what I should be doing? I can't do that. You have to decide with help, maybe from a doctor or a dietitian, that many people do that. But you have to have the power from your higher power to follow that. I eat basically the same staple foods every day. I eat so many ounces of protein. I eat so many ounces of vegetables. I eat so many ounces of salad, so much fat, so much fruit, and that's it. I never get tired of that. Now, some people like to mix it up more. That's fine. I am very grateful my higher power keeps me very happy with what I eat on a daily basis. Remember, we have a disease. We can't trust our best intentions or willpower. We can't. It isn't willpower. Think of all the hundreds of resolutions that you've made to yourself. It's New Year's Eve. I'm going to lose 400 pounds this year. Exaggeration. But we do that. We do that. And it didn't do any good. And we tried the shots and the pills and therapy, and it didn't work. So if you stay with it, you're going to start achieving a healthy body weight. And you have to be aware that no matter what your body size, age, or gender, you always have to have a nourishing plan of eating. It's got to nourish the body. I feel healthier now at age 65 than I did in my 30s, 40s, and 50s. Very honestly. Now, I don't have that much longer than I did at that point to be on this earth, but I have every intention of staying abstinent until my HP higher power takes me. Stay away from the trigger foods. Really important to do that. For example, it could be some of these foods, like chocolate, cookies, potato chips. I can't have any kind of chip. I can't have any kind of cracker. Foods containing sugar or sugar substitutes, such as desserts, sweetened drink products, cereals, processed meats. Foods containing fat, such as butter and high-fat dairy. Foods containing wheat, this one really hits home for me, flour or refined carbohydrates, such as pastries, certain pastas, and breads. Foods containing mixtures of sugar and fat, such as ice cream. I can't have that. Foods we eat in large quantities, even though they aren't trigger foods. That's still overeating. Well, I'll eat 24 ounces of Brussels sprouts with every meal. No, you don't need that. Stick to your allotted amount. Be careful of foods labeled as diet, sugar-free, no sugar added, low fat, low calorie, because they still can be a trigger for you. And how we can change our eating behaviors. You only need to eat until you're full. Don't take that extra piece of chicken. Don't take that extra potato. Don't take that extra piece of bread. If you're full, leave it alone. You don't have to finish everything on your plate. Don't devour your food rapidly. Enjoy the food. Don't eat in solitude if you can avoid it, or sitting in front of the television. Instead, sit at the table and eat. Eat because we feel obligated. You're at a party, a birthday party, you're at somebody's dinner party, and they want you to try this and this and this. They've spent hours on it, and you think they'll be hurt if you say no. You have to say no. Be selfish in a positive way and say, I can't have that. I choose not to eat that. Now, if you want an explanation, I can share that with you, but otherwise, that is my choice. It's probably better to eat at the same time every day. Don't obsessively worry about your weight daily. Do not get on the scale 4 to 5 times a day or more. You don't need to. Your body weight fluctuates all the time. I never get on a scale. That's just me. The only time I get on a scale is if I go to the doctor's office. And then I have them tell me what I am. Sometimes I'm happy with it. Sometimes I'm not. Recently, I was at the doctor. I had lost weight. So that was a good time. That worked well. Grazing mindlessly through the day is not good. Don't reach for that handful of M&Ms you have in your desk, or miniature chocolate bars, or donuts, or cookies, or whatever it is. You have to think about not having as much quantity as you used to. You might want to weigh and measure your food. You can get a home scale. When I first started this program, I weighed and measured my food. I don't do this so much anymore. I eyeball it, which is maybe not necessarily the right answer. And I get what you might be thinking about that. And maybe I am playing games with myself. But I found that I actually had many times more food when I weighed it than if I just eyeballed it. Initially, I thought, I'm going to starve to death. I never have starved to death, ever. Get an appropriate serving size as best you can. And I am never, if you could say to me, well, Scott, just give me a diet plan. I can't do that. If you identify your alcoholic foods and know that you can have to stay away from them, we call those red light foods. And then you can have yellow light foods, which may trigger, if you don't have them very often or in very, very small quantities. Green light foods are the foods that you can have. And people many times say to me, well, what can you eat? I have plenty of food that I can eat. Plenty of food, plenty of fruit, plenty of vegetables, plenty of protein, plenty of, I like oatmeal. I like to eat that occasionally too. So keep in mind that a plan of eating is really, really important. And think about what you would like to do to try to obtain that. And don't be ashamed to admit that you're a compulsive overeater. And don't try to figure out, how did this happen? Why me? Oh, poor me. Oh, poor me. Instead of accept it. Think about all the good that can come from it. Actually, I'm very grateful in many ways that I'm a compulsive overeater, because it's turned my life around. And I will always have the disease within my body. That's not going to dissipate. But I do not have to add fuel to having that be activated. So, if you have a slip, so to speak, if you've been on the road to recovery for some time, don't just use it as an example of just binging, of just going crazy and eating 4 to 5 bags of chips or a whole plate full of mashed potatoes and gravy and a loaf of bread or whatever it would be. That's something that you shouldn't have, or a whole Sara Lee cake. Instead, just realize you can start over at any time and don't have to feel any guilt whatsoever. You can just start. And the power greater than yourself will take the craving away from you. Yes, I know it sounds simple, but it's the truth. That's why this is a spiritual issue. Not religious, but spiritual. And if you look at the word sanity, I did not have that when it came to eating as a child or just a few years ago. I would just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat because that was my friend, because I had such low self-esteem, because I was filled with jealousy, rage, animosity. People didn't know that. They just thought I was happy, 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 happy. And I wasn't. But now I am. Now I can tell you that I am. So, I end with what I've shared before. The prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Say that every day, over and over and over, and you will be saved. If you truly believe, you have to accept the things you cannot change, the courage to change it, and the wisdom to know the difference.
For the next course, come one, come all. Nothing spoiled here. From comfort classics to what's hot now. Film reviews from Mr. B's Rewatchables.
Film lovers out there in podcast land, There's one actress today who I think is the greatest actress of all time. Now, I have shared with you that I thought Bette Davis was the queen of the screen, and I've done a review of The Little Foxes, which is still one of my favorite films, and it's given you a whole list of some of her movies in the past. But I'm afraid, Betty, you're going to have to take a back seat, because Meryl Streep, to me, is the ultimate actress. She can sing, she can dance, she can act, she can do drama, she can do comedy. And she has had a long, long career. I believe right now that she's a semi-regular on a show on Hulu called Murders in the Building with Martin Short and Steve Martin. And you don't see her as much in major films as you did in the 80s and the 90s and the early part of the 21st century. But I'd like to give you a brief rundown of some of her greatest films. So if you're watching cable, or if you're streaming, or if you want to buy it, or find a free streaming service, you could watch the movie. So these are not coming to you in any certain order. The first one I'm going to mention is Sophie's Choice, which she won the Academy Award for. And I'm not going to give you the whole story, but I did want you to know that she plays a survivor of a concentration camp, a Polish young lady. And there's one horrific scene in that film that will stick with me forever, where she is at the concentration camp. She has a young boy, a young son, and a young daughter. And the Gestapo says to her, "You can keep one of your children. The other one is going to be exterminated." Can you imagine?
Ich kann nicht wählen.
Halt's Maul.
Ich kann nicht wählen.
Komm, ich schick sie beide weg. Ich schick beide Kinder weg.
Nein.
Ja doch, du musst
Zwingen Sie
wählen.
mich nicht zu wählen.
Komm,
Ich kann nicht wählen.
Und ich schick sie beide darüber.
Nein.
Halt's Maul, halt. Hör auf jetzt. Du sollst das Maul halten.
Nein.
Los, entscheide dich, wähle.
Nein. Zwingen Sie mich nicht zu wählen. Ich kann nicht wählen.
Ich schick sie beide darüber.
Ich kann nicht wählen.
Nehmen Sie beide Kinder weg. Ja, was ist denn? Los!
Nehmen Sie meine Kleine. Nehmen Sie meine Kleine. Nehmen Sie das Mädchen. Nehmen Sie das Mädchen.
And she has to make a choice. I'm not going to say what that choice is. You've just got to see it. And so the film shows what it's like for her in a concentration camp. She is released from a concentration camp and then comes to America and lives with a man and has a very, very unhappy life. And that's not really paying great justice to the film, but try to see Sophie's Choice. Amazing film. Another one of my favorites of hers, actually they're all my favorites, would have to be the film Doubt, which is a 2008 American film based on the Pulitzer Prize winning and a Tony Award winning 2004 stage play Doubt. And it takes place in the 60s in a Catholic elementary school. And it stars Meryl Streep, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Amy Adams, and Viola Davis. And she plays the head of the nuns. I'm not sure if that's the official title, who teach in a school. She's the principal. And she starts to believe that the priest, portrayed by Philip Seymour Hoffman, may be doing inappropriate activities with a young boy.
You haven't the slightest proof of anything.
But I have my certainty. And on with that, I'll go to your last parish. And the one before that. If necessary, I'll find a parent. Trust me, Father Flynn, I will.
You have no right to act on your own. You have taken vows. Obedience being one. You answer to us. You have no right to step outside the church.
I will step outside the church! If that's what needs to be done, though the door should shut behind me, I will do what needs to be done. Though I'm damned to hell. You should understand that, or you will mistake me.
Now, there's absolutely no proof of this. None. She's simply going on a whim, and she goes out on a full campaign to sabotage his priesthood. And she does win, or she does get him to leave the church that's affiliated with the school. And he goes to another parish. We never know whether or not he inappropriately behaved with the student. He denied it vehemently. And it's a film that makes you really think about, do you have enough proof to make an accusation? And every time I see the film, sometimes I feel that the priest is guilty. Sometimes I feel that he was railroaded. But that, I think, is what the playwright wanted you to feel. Because if you have doubt, then you've got to decide what you're going to do with that. Because it can eat you up, as it does to the head nun, which is quite apparent at the end of the film because of the decision that she made. So there's another great film. Number 3 is Kramer versus Kramer, one of her very earliest films, 1979 American legal drama. Stars Dustin Hoffman, Meryl Streep, Justin Henry, and Jane Alexander. And it tells the story of a couple's divorce, its impact on its son, and the evolution of the relationship and views on parenting. Meryl Streep portrays a stay-at-home mom who one day decides that she can no longer stay in the home environment and leaves her son with the father, who's a workaholic and doesn't have any time for his family.
Ted, I'm leaving you. Ted, keys. Here are my keys. Here's my American Express card. Here's my Bloomingdale's credit card. Here's my checkbook. I've taken $2,000 out of our savings account because that's what I had in the bank when we first got married.
Was this some kind of joke?
Here's the cleaning. Here's the laundry ticket. You can pick them both up on Saturday. You have to pick them up on Saturday. Joe, you want to tell me what's the matter? I paid the rent, I paid the Con Ed bill, and I paid the phone bill, so...
Well, you really pick your times, Ted. Well, I'm sorry that I was late, but I was busy making a living, all right?
I'm not taking him with me. I'm no good for him. I'm terrible with him. I have no patience. He's better off without me.
Joanne, please.
And I don't love you anymore.
And then months later, after she has established herself in a career, she wants the child back. And then they have a court battle. And I'm not going to tell you how it ends. You must see the film. But it really makes you think about how a father many times is not considered the major provider for a child, and maybe a father can do that. And you understand also for her character that sometimes being at home with the child is not enough. You have to have a career also and still be a competent parent. And that's what she wanted. So I'm not taking sides as to which parent was better, not at all. It deals with the work-life balance, how single parents raise a child. Fascinating, wonderful film to try to find the time to see. Then, of course, how could I not mention Mamma Mia?
Harry?
must come to an end. Look at me now. Will I ever learn? I don't know how. But I suddenly lose control. There's a fire within my soul. Just one look and I can hear a bell ring. One more look and I forget everything. Whoa, Mamma Mia, here I go again. My, how can I resist?
Mamma mia, here we go again. Okay, I'll be quiet. Let Abba take care of it. Anyway, it's a 2008 jukebox musical based on the songs of the group ABBA, and follows a young bride-to-be on a Greek island where they have a hotel, and the mother is Meryl Streep, who invites 3 men to the wedding. Any of them could be her father. Okay. Sounds a little crazy to me. I love Mamma Mia. I've seen it on stage many times, and I love the film too. And I like the sequel, Here We Go Again. I do. But the story, a little crazy. But it has the songs of ABBA, and it has the film Meryl Streep. And she exhibits great acting, actually more so great singing in this film, as Donna, a woman who has given up love to take care of her daughter as a single parent, and now her daughter wants to get married. And then how does she deal with these 3 potential fathers of the bride as they come to the island? And that's all I'm going to share with you, because you've got to see it. And of course, it has a plethora, you know how I love that word, of ABBA songs that fit into the story very well. There are other groups, singing groups, whose songs have been incorporated into a musical. They've done it with Britney Spears. They've done it with Billy Joel. They've done it with, I think, the Bangles. Oh, no, excuse me, the Go-Go's. Other groups, too. So, Mamma Mia, go see it. Don't let it be your Waterloo, Waterloo. Okay. And let's move on to another one. How about, do you remember Julie the Child? The woman who used to be on public television, and she make all this great French cuisine. Well, there's a film where she portrays Julie the Child. And the film is called Julie and Julia. It's a 2009 biographical comedy drama that stars Amy Adams, who was also with Meryl Streep in Doubt, Stanley Tucci. It contrasts the life of Chef Julia Child in the early years of her culinary career with the life of a young New Yorker. This is true. This is an actual story. Julie Powell, who all of a sudden is looking for something to do more with her life, and she aspires to cook all 524 recipes in Julia Child's The Art of French Cooking. And she vows to do it in 365 days, which she had at that time a blog and made her a published author. So the film goes back and forth between the 2 stories. The one with Julia of how she couldn't find something that she wanted to do with her life, and then found French cooking to be her calling.
I don't really want to go back into government work. Mm-hmm. You know, but shouldn't I find something to do?
What is it that you really like to do?
Eat. That's what I like to do.
I know. And you're so good at it. Look at you. Now, how
growing
good you
in
are.
front of you. Because, you see, there is no French cookbook in English. And all I have is The Joy of Cooking by Irma Rombar, which is an excellent cookbook, but it's not French. So I did ask my friend Avis Devoto to look around in the United States.
Madame,
If she could find en français, je vous prie, en français. Right. Right.
And then Julie, who is stuck in a job she doesn't like, and the only thing she looks forward to is going home and trying to cook one of the 524 recipes in the cookbook. They never meet, they never communicate, but yet their stories are quite the same. And so it is uncanny how Meryl Streep sounds and looks like Julia Child in this film. You've got to see it. Another one I'm going to mention is Postcards from the Edge. Yes. And this is based on a book by Carrie Fisher, the daughter of Debbie Reynolds. Supposedly semi-biographical. But anyway, Meryl Streep, one of her earlier films, plays Suzanne Vale, who has been in a drug rehab center and is released to come home and live with her mom. Now, Suzanne is an aspiring actress. Her mother was an actress in the golden age of, I believe, MGM musicals. And her mother is really a drug addict. She is an alcoholic. And so there's great conflict between the two of them in this story, which all becomes quite well resolved in the end. And at the end of the film, and I'm not probably paying great justice to this film because there's much more to it, Meryl Streep sings a song that she's going to be performing in a movie when she finally comes to grips with her addiction, her compulsive activity, and is happy with herself, probably using a 12-step program. And she's reached a good place with her mother, a good understanding. She sings a song, and it's one of the best singing portrayals I have ever heard in a film. I mean, Meryl Streep has pipes. She has pipes. And she can really, really sing.
And I can hardly speak, can hardly sing. My heart is beating so, and anyone can tell you think you know me well. Sweet song. Well, you don't know me. Kiss your lips, longs to hold you tight. To you I'm just a friend, and that's all that I've ever been. But you don't know me.
So I would suggest also, and it's funny, it's also very dramatic, deals with addictive behaviors. Great story. Great story. Just a couple more today. Maybe I'll come back to Meryl sometime. Would be Death Becomes Her, which is right now also been developed into a Broadway musical. I don't think it's on Broadway yet, but it's coming. It's a 1992 film, satirical dark comedy, very dark. And stars Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn, Bruce Willis. And the plot involves two women who fight for the affection of the same man. They drink a magic potion that promises eternal youth. Promises. So, Meryl Streep is an actress who is falling off the radar. She's making terrible Broadway musicals, she's not as popular anymore because she just is getting older. And so she marries a plastic surgeon who was, I should say, who was going to be married to Goldie Hawn, her supposedly best friend. A very, very awkward friendship. Anyway, he's supposed to keep her eternally young. Well, that doesn't work. So then she has to turn to a magic potion. And so she does become incredibly youthful looking, but there's, of course, always a price to pay for vanity. And so that's where the story continues from there. And her relationship with Bruce Willis in the film, with Goldie Hawn, what happens when you never get older and the world around you gets older.
Helen, I think you should leave right away. I see a very, very bad situation developing here. Dear? Madeline?
I just want you to know one thing, Hal. You brought this on yourself.
Madeline! Oh, my God! What have you done?
What have I done? Defended myself, that's what. You plotter, co-conspirator.
She's dead!
She is. These are the moments that make life worth living.
See the film, Death Becomes Her. I think you'll be very, 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 very happy. And the last one, just for today. Is this a fair sampling of all the films of Meryl Streep? No. That's why I must come back to Meryl Streep sometime. Would be a film that I could watch every week, The Devil Wears Prada. Excuse me. Which is a 2006 American comedy drama that stars Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Stanley Tucci, and Emily Blunt. And it's set in the fashion world where Anne Hathaway is a college graduate with a degree in journalism who can't find a job. And so she goes to this magazine called Runway that is overseen by Meryl Streep. And she plays Meryl Streep, one of the most candid, the cold ice queen character. And she has some great lines in this film. She seems to have no respect for anybody. She's brilliant in what she does in being the head person at the Runway magazine.
You go to your closet and you select, I don't know, that lumpy blue sweater, for instance, because you're trying to tell the world that you take yourself too seriously to care about what you put on your back. But what you don't know is that that sweater is not just blue, it's not turquoise, it's not lapis, it's actually cerulean. And you're also blithely unaware of the fact that in 2002, Oscar de la Renta did a collection of cerulean gowns. And then I think it was Yves Saint Laurent, wasn't it, who showed cerulean military jackets? I think we need a jacket here. And then cerulean quickly showed up in the collections of 8 different designers. And then it filtered down through the department stores and then trickled on down into some tragic casual corner where you no doubt fished it out of some clearance bin. However, that blue represents millions of dollars and countless jobs. And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
But she can't tolerate anybody or anything. And so then you have her and Anne Hathaway as her secretary, who has no appreciation whatsoever for fashion at first. That changes. Not for the better. And you see the relationship between the two of them. And Meryl Streep is absolutely flawless in portraying this ice queen. And one of my favorite lines is every time that she's dealing with Anne Hathaway and she's spouting all the orders for her, then she'll just say, "That's all, that's all, that's all." And that's your signal to get out of my office. When she first works there, Anne Hathaway, Meryl Streep calls her Emily because that was the name of the former secretary. She can't keep a secretary for very long or administrative assistant because of her behavior. And she just didn't want to take the time to learn Anne Hathaway's name. And so she just called her Emily. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's way more. So I'm telling you, folks, you've got to see these films. You've got to take the time to let Meryl Streep into your life. She is a gift from heaven above. And there's many more films. And we will sometime take the time. So, have a Meryl Streep holiday.
All I can do is cry. No one will ever know the one who loves you so. No, you don't know me.
And now, let's take a look at Scott's suitcase as he travels all over the place and tells you about it. On the road with Mr. B.
I like to travel. I like to get out. I can do that. I'm very grateful to say, the financial means to do so. And I have the time. And I'm healthy. And so I like seeing the world. And so recently, my son, my firstborn, my 35-year-old, Eric, and I decided to take a road trip. Now, I'm not big into driving a long way, but I made the exception. And we went out to Yellowstone National Park and the Grand Tetons. And this was in the month of September. And we chose that time because it would be cooler, and it definitely was cooler, but I'd rather have that than being overwrought with heat. And the crowd would not necessarily be as big, and that was true. Not necessarily was it an off season, but fewer people. And it was the beginning of the leaves turning in Yellowstone, and that was absolutely gorgeous. So I guess I could say that going to Yellowstone has been on my bucket list. I'm not sure if I'm a big believer in a bucket list, but anyway, we'll say that it was there. And so my son needed a vacation. He got time off from work, and so we went together. Now, this is going to be a real experiment in could two men coexist in a car for all those hours who most of the time get along splendidly, but definitely have moments. Always have. But love him to death. And I'm happy to report to you, if you're at all interested, that it went very, very well. And it was a trip not only seeing nature, but a trip to reestablish or further make our relationship better. And that I was very grateful about. And became closer, had some very intimate talks. And so what better way can you spend your time than bonding with your child and seeing nature? Hey, the best of both worlds. So anyway, we drove out first to Rapid City, South Dakota, and stayed there. That was, I think, 5, 6, 7 hours, something like that. You know, I'm not good with numbers. And that was as far as I could go that day. And then we went to Crazy Horse Memorial, or maybe that's not the right term, Monument, where they are carving Crazy Horse on a horse out of this mountain. And I could see that they had made great progress from when I had taken my 2 children when they were very young, many, many years ago. And that was wonderful and great. And then we also drove through the Badlands, which I really enjoy. I always feel like I'm an extraterrestrial person on an extraterrestrial planet, going through all the valleys and seeing all of these oddly shaped mountainous regions and the colors, and it's just gorgeous. I highly recommend it to do that. And then we left the next day and drove to Billings, Montana, and stayed there. We didn't do any sightseeing there, and got up the next day and drove, I think about 2.5 hours or so, and we were at the entrance to the world's oldest and most renowned park, Yellowstone National Park. And I had a senior pass. You have to have a pass to get into the park. And we started gallivanting around. Can we use that word, gallivanting? No, don't ask me to spell it. So the first stop was to, I believe, Mammoth Springs, where you saw steam coming out of the ground. You don't see that in Iowa. You saw bubbling mud. You saw areas where you couldn't walk because it was too hot. You had to stay on the path. And just saw some beautiful sights. And then, of course, while we were in Yellowstone, we saw Old Faithful. And she was supposed to go off at 11:08. I remember that. And my son and I were standing close by, large crowd, and it was quite cold that day. And I think she was just reluctant to spout at 11:08. And she didn't really go off, so to speak, until 11:30 or so. And by that time, I'd gone back into the visitor center and was watching from a heated area. But I still got video of it. And it truly was remarkable to see this. And I can see why she attracts, I'm talking about her as though she's a woman, so many people from around the world. It's amazing. And so we saw so much wildlife. We saw elk, walking in the road, standing by your car. I could hear the bucks bleating in the morning from our cabin that we were staying in, and because it was the mating season, and they're looking for girlfriends. And saw some moose. I did not see a bear. So I guess I didn't need the bear spray, which I did not buy. And recently I've seen on the news that people have been attacked, not necessarily mortally wounded in Yellowstone by bears. But they say if you stand still, if you don't approach a bear, if you make some kind of noise, then they're not going to have any interaction with you. So, and you always have to make sure that you don't feed a bear. Do not leave trash out, because that is not good, because they want it. And then it could be an uncomfortable situation. So then went walking on some trails, of course, and just saw the beautiful scenery. And then we drove to the Grand Tetons, which are amazingly beautiful. I could look at the Grand Tetons every day. Those beautifully snow-capped mountains. And we did some sightseeing. We went to Jackson, Wyoming, and learned about wildlife there. And we just had a marvelous time. So I hope sometime in your life, it took me a long time to get there, but I did get there. And I drove. I drove the whole time. We drove back in one day. I drove 16 hours. I never thought I could do that. I did it. And I can say it wasn't that painful. But we left Wyoming at 3:45 in the morning, and we were home by 9 o'clock that night. And it can be done. It can be done. And it was worth every moment. It was a great journey for us emotionally, bonding with each other, and also bonding with the wonder of nature and how beautiful nature is. And it just made me realize again the importance of knowing that a higher power has created all this. And I'm so glad that in the 1800s, somebody was smart enough to establish this as a national park, because the beauty is overwhelming. So if you are one to find spirituality in nature, there's no better place than Yellowstone Park and the Grand Tetons. Well, my happy friends, that's it for today. Next time we get together, I might be sharing some poetry. I might be sharing with you a review of a TV show. I might be talking about what my life was like as a co-director for a high school musical for 35 years. Yes, I said it, 35 years. Seems like only yesterday. But for today, I'm going to say goodbye. And I hope that what I've shared about the journey with your eating, if it applies to you, that you'll realize that you are not alone. That you are loved by your higher power. And if you love yourself, you'll not want to destroy yourself. But don't be afraid to reward yourself by watching a Meryl Streep movie. Then get into the car and drive to Yellowstone. I tried to tie it all together. Was I successful? Only you can answer that. I hope that you walk away satisfied, happy, and know that I will wish for you all the happiness in the world, and have joy in your daily life, and keep your sights on your higher power. And when it comes to your eating, stay clean. Because if you stay clean, then everything else will fall into place. You've got to be abstinent if you have an eating disorder. So, bye-bye for now.
Mr. B's Dinner Party is hosted by Scott Bertelson, edited and produced by Troy Thompson, recorded and distributed at Sunnyside Farm Studios. Music is provided by Soundstripe and platformed by Buzzsprout. Like our page on Facebook, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share with your friends. Listen and enjoy every other Wednesday, conversational morsels for the mind on Mr. B's Dinner Party.